Powered by Rep Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Tim's is stacking its lunch and dinner menu with the launch of the new Supreme Stack Sandwich. It features a tall stack of seasoned steak, double smoked bacon, caramelized onions, mozzarella, and Monterey cheeses, and a creamy peppercorn sauce, all on a delicious potato bun. Tried one the other day. It's spectacular. Absolutely
really?
love it. You're gonna.
Really?
Oh, so good.
Did you on
so
the way
good.
to studio, or did you make a pit
Yes.
stop?
Remember, as I described to you, I do this often because it's my routine. I'm not making this up for the sake of pumping the tires of Tim Hortons, but I normally head to studio around 3:30 Eastern. I go through the drive-through, which is Thixon and Winchester here. My good friend Matt Hanley. And depends. Sometimes, we pre-plan if it's Noodles and I and Frankie Corrado, Cheryl Pounder, maybe we go out for dinner after doing our pregame hits. Or if everybody's got their plan set, then I'm ordering a sandwich. I got to take something in. And I took the Supreme Stack the other day. You know what the problem with it was?
Messy.
No, I wanted I wanted two of them.
The reason I said messy was because I figured you'd be in your suit. You've told me about the change into the shirt thing. I have a phobia about that due to my lack of skills getting stuff from my hands to my mouth. And, that would concern me a bit.
Ryan Rishaug can join us in this episode of Ray and Dregs as we record here Thursday morning because he is covering the end of season, the clean out interviews, the Edmonton Oilers. So he's got good reason. And so I had a back and forth text exchange with him earlier this morning, Ray.
How'd that go for
at
Ryan?
His expense? Well, I sent a video in the group chat of Ryan trying to amble his way down the stairs in Florida at their practice facility earlier this week. And he pulled his, I think he said Achilles. I assumed it was gout because he has a history of gout. He's like an 82-year-old man, but he can. It wasn't
Hang
gout.
on, let me stop you for a sec. Do you notice in our texts when Ryan feels ganged up upon, he just ghosts the text?
Yeah,
he doesn't even respond anymore. I threw a couple of things in there just trying to help out, like I do, and there was just no answer. I was quite surprised.
No.
And then you with a camera is bad news. It's such a doggy.
It's so just how my brain works. So the people who are watching and listening, yes, of course, we as a group chat, it's camaraderie. It's like a dressing room, right? So we learned that Ryan's got the pulled Achilles. So I'm in the media room prior to Game 6, and there's a dude standing in front of me with a dress shoe on in his suit and a walking boot because he's clearly injured his foot. And so I take the picture from the knees down and I send it into our group chat and I say, hey, Ryan's taking a turn here and Oilers doctors have suggested that he needs some help. And Randy and Rishaug, Ryan's better half, is part of our group, and she was like, "Oh no, what?" Like a couple of babes were thrown out there by both Randy and Ryan. And anyway,
it's touching. It's touching. It really is touching, though.
But there is a follow-up.
He didn't respond when I said, "Oh, Ryan, I can't tell which is your dress shoe and which is the boot."
No,
and
he just goes, "It's not me, you idiot," or something like that. But the update this morning, Thursday morning, Ray.
Okay.
I don't know what happened if he stumbled on the escalator in his travel back to Edmonton from Florida, but he's aggravated the injury. And hold on, let me read it so that we are 100% accurate here. Sorry, Ryan, this is too good. And I actually, and this is going to be an interesting plug. So he says, travel home, blew up the Achilles even more. Can't walk. Like, can't even stand up. Physio later today. That was the update. Oh, okay. So you know what I said? You go ahead, and then I'm going to tell you what I said because you're going to like it.
But the Achilles blew up. Like, what was he doing? Jumping jacks on the way home? You're just walking through the airport.
Yeah, it's too bad he's not on because, yeah, we need to understand. We need
Yeah,
details here.
I think we can get into this next week a little bit too, eh? Or
So
the
he's
next
got
show when he pops on.
15-year-old running shoes. And wisely going onto the ice for the celebration and interviews at Game 6 with the Florida Panthers, he took his dress shoes off and he put these ratty old, grass cutting shoes on. It's
Grass cutting.
to do his interview. So my response to his update today, Ray. Okay,
Yes.
listen closely because you and I both have a deep appreciation for this. I said, Ryan, buy new running shoes. I said, seriously, go to your nearest Kintech and get fitted.
Thank you.
Said they might throw in some inserts, which they did for me. I said, I have a couple of pairs. They are tremendous. And that's not a shameless plug because you've done this national commercial. It's legit. It's real.
I'm telling you, like it will help him. It is so
for sure it will.
But if he won't reach out, we'll just keep kicking him in the shins as he hobbles around most of the summer with who knows what. I thought he didn't respond very positively either when you asked him if he had gout. He did not.
No.
That was not a heartfelt answer from him.
See, and Kintech has the ability, I believe, to alter each shoe. So when he's got the Fred Flintstone gout toe, maybe they can build out a wing on the top. Anyway,
we got to get going. But people that are younger and don't know the Fred Flintstone stuff, man, Fred was quite an actor. It was and it really kind of fits here quite well, I think.
The big throbbing toe
when he dropped the bowling ball on it all the time.
All right, on to headlines, Ray, because there is a lot to unpack with the conclusion of the Stanley Cup Final. As mentioned, the Oilers speaking today, so we'll hear more of that on the various channels. I'm sure Got Your Back with Ryan and Struddy and Rob Brown will likely tackle that later in the day as well. The wound is still very fresh and raw from losing again to the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final. But, and we're going to rip apart this. We're going to peel it. So I just want your big picture overview because for me, as you predicted, this series would end in 6. You felt like it would be 2-2 and it would end up being a best of 3, which is exactly what it turned out to be. But game 5 and 6 for me executed to near perfection by the Florida Panthers in every sense.
Any way you look at the series, in any particular fashion, Florida was just a little bit better. And if you add a little bit better all over the ice in as many different ways as you can slice up a game, you get one team that's just too good. And that's what Florida was for me. Like early in the playoffs, right, there was a lot written about the depth of the Oilers and how it was different than it was in the past. And then you get to the end, and there's the top 9 forwards on Florida got 15 points each.
Crazy.
There's no team that's going to match that depth.
No.
And then, so you have, your top pairs, Ekblad and Forsling. And then on your second pair, they go make this trade for Seth Jones. And the elevation of Nico Mikkola gives them like this top 4 that's got 3 really big defenders and Gus Forsling, who's one of the best skaters of a defenseman in the game.
Yeah.
So look at that top 4. Like everywhere you looked at it, they were a little better. Oh yeah, in game 6, I thought the first half dozen shifts, the Oilers were awesome. And the team with the better goalie won. Like Bobrovsky was a significant upgrade over whatever Edmonton could put in. Now last year that wasn't the case. Skinner played really well in the finals. This year, I mean, clearly not so much. The overview for me, the best team won. The team that should have won. And that was a dominant game 5 and 6. My son and grandson were in game 5 in Edmonton, and he said by the middle of the second period, you could hear the players' skates on the ice, like they
That's
had just
fair.
pulled the air out of all the hope. And then they went into game 6, and it really didn't even feel, outside of the first couple minutes, I'm like, I don't see this. Like I don't see a way this goes back to Edmonton. And sure enough, they get to hoist the cup for the second straight year.
So, it's so difficult to measure the investment, both physically, emotionally, just everything about it, right? It's so difficult to do what the Florida Panthers have done. And look, the Oilers have some injuries and things that certain players played with, and maybe we'll learn more about those specifics. Paul Maurice shared the information on Barkov, who had a hand laceration that he had to deal with. Sam Reinhart suffered an MCL tear in the Eastern Conference Final, played through that. Matthew Tkachuk, the torn adductor and hernia that he played through from the Four Nations forward, and on both sides. But try and explain to the fringe fan out there how the success of this team, or any team for that matter, that hoists the Stanley Cup, but now Florida is our most recent example of a developing dynasty, success of a team that's built on that unique combination of those things, including, of course, individual sacrifice and overall talent and commitment.
I think the greatest thing that they've achieved in Florida in the construction of their team is it just doesn't matter who is the significant contributor. It really doesn't matter. Barkov led the team in scoring. I think he had 75 points, 51 assists. Reinhart had an amazing year last year, pretty good year this year, but it didn't really particularly matter, right? Like, it matters to Sam, and it matters that he scores enough for the team to be successful. They lost Tkachuk from February on. Didn't really matter. Somebody else came in and filled those minutes. They got to the deadline. Everybody talks about Marchand. He didn't play. Like, Brad didn't play until the playoffs.
No.
Or virtually so. It just doesn't matter. They've built this concept that every organization tries to find, and that's team. And I have been just like, I get to stand right between the benches there, right, when I'm doing the games. And I am just so impressed. Like, they literally move forward like a group. Like, somebody has a lousy shift and they just slide down the bench. You don't see any door slams, or very few of them, from their team. Like, I get the impression, like, I could drop an F-bomb or two or slam a door or two. I get the impression, had I gone to a team like that, my behavior would have changed. Because you fit or don't. And so and it's not like fit, like, oh, I'm just going to follow along. I would think you would look and go, that's the right way.
Yeah.
That's the best way. And so what they've achieved in Florida, to me, the concept of team that everybody talks about, culture and all those great words, they have it. They really do have it. It was so impressive. And I sensed that Edmonton felt, as this series went on, we're a half a step behind all the time.
Right.
Without Hyman, that made their top 6 so much weaker.
Agreed.
And that was one thing they couldn't overcome. And they also got to a point where guys, bumped their heads up on their ceiling, and that's as well as they can play. I don't think Nugent Hopkins was healthy towards
hand, I think.
Yeah. And so, like, without him at full capacity or near full capacity, without Hyman, like, they just didn't have enough. Like, you can, their second line there, they're trying, like, Kane and Podkolzin and Arvidsson and Skinner, and Skinner slapping his stick around on the ice like I don't know what he was, like, you can't be that. And I know that because I was closer to that than not. Right? Like, you let your frustration show, you're out of the game for a moment. Yeah. And they just had too many guys that couldn't play at that level. I think. as I watched it over the totality of the series. That's kind of what happened.
So I want to phrase this question with a high level of respect for all of our hockey fans who are listeners, because mostly educated hockey people. What I mean by that is they understand the game, but you played it. You played it at its highest level. So when you watch a game, you watch it differently than most of us, because you understand the inner workings. So that's I'm prefacing what I'm about to ask. I think that the general educated hockey population thought or expected that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, given their incredible wealth of talent, would find a way to steal a game or games, or given their experience and level of disappointment from losing in Game 7 last year, just wouldn't allow that to happen again. So that's, I think, generally what most average hockey fans would have thought was going to occur. So does that make sense to you, or do you, because of the way you look at the game, go, yeah, that's fair? But how in tune the Florida Panthers were, defensively especially, as a group, not just the defense, the forwards, the goaltending, all of that, doesn't matter. Leon and Connor could have had lights out performances. It doesn't matter because Florida was just better in every sense.
Okay, but so this drags. I don't quite get this from fans. I get it because you're so emotionally tied to your team, right? Like you're, and you know that if you're an Oiler fan or a casual fan watching the game, the way Edmonton can win this series is if these guys play out of their minds.
Yeah,
and a couple of problems with that. One is at most they're 2 of 5 players on the ice, right? The most they can play is in the 22, 23 minute range, generally speaking. The bigger part is that the other team gets to try too. And so as great as you are, McDavid makes a great rush. He gets by one guy. He gets around another guy. Draisaitl's open, and you can make a pass. Oh, yeah, there's still another defender there, and there's still a goalie there. Like, they can do everything correctly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't essentially matter. It does matter, but you don't get any result from it. If you look at the way Florida plays, they don't break down very often. And what Connor in particular does is he breaks people down. Like, remember, there was a couple of times that Aaron Ekblad in that series looked like he'd never skated before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But that's 2 times out of 6 games. So I'm surprised that with hockey people, they're like, McDavid just has to dominate the game. Well, yeah, I understand that he does, but I don't care if he's the greatest player of all time. And I think individually, skill-wise, he is. I really don't think there's a debate to that. However, you can only do what you can do. Last year, he won the fricking Conn Smythe, and they lost. Like, what more is he supposed to do?
Yeah.
Stop a few more pucks? Like, what more can you do but be the best player in the playoffs? And so I don't quite subscribe to this, if he doesn't win, his legacy's hurt and all that. I don't, because it's not that type of game. Like, you mean to tell me that I'm going to pick a guy, Sergei Brylin, because I often think of him about, I didn't understand how good a player he was when he came over, but he won multiple Stanley Cups. You mean to tell me that Sergei Brylin's a better player than Connor McDavid because he won? No, he was playing on that team at this time. Right. Jona Gadjevich has 2 Stanley Cups. Like, amazing, awesome, great for him. But honestly, what are we talking about here? The only way Edmonton was going to win is if somehow their goaltending played on par with Bobrovsky, and Draisaitl and McDavid in particular had lights out series. And you can add Bouchard into that too, because they needed him to have it. And, he's still, to me, as confounding a player as there is. Like, the highs and the lows are so far apart that's concerning to me.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you wash all that out and just then you get to the final. So they've played, what they play? 13 games.
Yeah.
Right? They played 13 games and the series is 8-5.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like they got the game 7. They almost scored the game-winning goal, and then Reinhart scored. They get to game 6. They don't have enough, and you go home a loser 2 years in a row. But damn, those are 2 pretty good years they've had, and it still sucks. And you'll still try to figure out, how do we win an extra couple of games? And that's where Edmonton is right now.
The best player in the Stanley Cup playoffs is identified by a committee of 18 media voters who vote on the Conn Smythe. And, this year, Sam Bennett certainly deserving of the recognition. 15 goals, 22 points, 13 of those goals on the road, which is an NHL record. So start with his performance, and then just how opportunity seems to find special individuals. And I'm lumping Sam Reinhart into this conversation because he gets the game winner in game 7 last year and then just lights it up on a torn MCL in game 6.
Well, okay, start with Bennett. Is the reason I felt he was the Conn Smythe winner over Marchand. I know there was a lot of people that thought he could be and should be in that conversation.
Fairly, yeah.
Fairly for sure, it's not the best player of the finals, right? Where I think he had 6 goals, right, in the finals. Florida probably doesn't get out of the early part of the playoffs without Bennett, and over the 2 months, 15 goals is an amazing performance. Amazing. I thought his play, his impact. I thought that vote was right. Like for my money, that's who I would have voted if I
agree. Yeah.
Sam, I've watched Sam play a lot. He's from Vancouver here, and he's always kind of played the same. Like you always find a faster guy, you always find a stronger guy, yet you don't find a better guy. And he's so smart. He's just like, when he gets the puck, he knows when to carry it. He knows when to pass it. He has no ego to his game. But inside him is a real quiet, very, very confident player. And if people knew his dad, that's what his dad is like. But when he played, that's what his dad was like. Paul was a phenomenal player who got waylaid with back problems. He had back surgeries and all this. But there is always a confidence in Paul that I see in Sam. And so, like, if you want an example of, like, the game 7, like the first goal is just how does he end up with the puck, beating 2 defensemen, fall down, and make that shot? Yeah. Like, it's not like it was a burst of speed and strength, and it's just like, it just happens because he knows how to play. Go back to game 7 of last year. On the winning goal, he gets the puck outside. He's right on the boards. And he's like in no hurry whatsoever. And he just kind of glides into the middle of the ice. And you're like there's no rush to anything he does. I love watching him play. He's one of my favorite players to watch because I think I like watching the not so obvious greats. Like, Sam is a great player, and he's one of the first 6 on Team Canada. He should be. He's now he's, what did he get? 60 goals last year. He's a multiple cup winner. The last 2 years for Sam have been, he's knocked them out of the park, like individually as well, of course, as with his team.
Well, a likable guy, as you've identified. He just is. He's a very nice man. All right. Billy Zito told us post-game on Tuesday he intends, Ray, on signing all 3 of his pending free agents. So Marchand, Bennett, and Ekblad. So let's go back on ice to Tuesday night and revisit the club.
This is probably the last thing you want me to ask you, and you can tell me to get lost.
Uh-oh.
But you got 3 big name free agents. How quickly do you get into that? Can you bring possibly them all back? Can you bring 2 out of 3 back?
I think we can bring them all back.
Really?
Yeah.
With sizable hometown discounts?
Let's just leave it at that.
Listen, go
So James Duthie, of course, poking Billy Zito. It was a comical exchange in an interview. Just the whole discussion as it was unfolding. It was live because at one point earlier, I don't know if you caught it or not watching, Ray, but Duthie proclaimed that Brad Marchand is the greatest deadline day acquisition ever.
Ever.
Ever is a long time. That's a big word.
It is a
ever.
long time. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's exactly how he positioned it to Zito, but he didn't ask a question. So there's like a 3-second pause as he says
and does
it.
Billy
And
just
Duffy's-
go, what's he going to say?
He goes,
right?
well, yeah, and James, do you agree? Well, you made a statement. Well, like, what do you want me to say? Noodles and I were absolutely howling about that. But you and I are both decent at math. Maybe not our overall best strength.
Not a
We're
great
okay.
strength. Yeah,
We can add and subtract. We're fine by that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, I admire Zito's confidence. I'm certainly not going to question his track record. Like, come on. I mean, if you
better
look
not.
at this past, no, I mean, look at this past season alone. Seth Jones, Brad Marchand. I mean, go down the list. Having probably 3 different conversations with Sam Bennett post game on Tuesday night. He wants to do everything within his power to stay in Florida. So
right.
I'm sure Florida, as Zito said, he wants to keep all 3 of those guys. How do you do that? Like, you're moving money out, obviously, but they're all going to have to take haircuts. Market value doesn't
hang
matter,
on.
right?
Okay, haircuts or like chop the top of your head off. like you can write about state tax all you want.
Yeah.
State tax is not 25%. Like,
No.
if you need the players, I'm going to make this money up. Like, if you need the players to take $6 million and somebody else offers them 25% more than that,
Yeah.
well, they're probably going to go unless the place that they go to is no good. Like, none of these players are in a position that some guys get to a point where, yes, the money does matter. Like they've been underpaid for a significant period of their career. Like Marchand's been making $6 million for quite some time.
Yeah.
Could he have made more? Of course. But that was the deal he signed. He's made tens of millions of dollars. Bennett and Ekblad, the same thing. I think Ekblad's contract's $7.5 million right now.
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, and Bennett, what's Bennett at? Is he at 6? Ish?
Ish.
Or is he a little less? Like, he might be the
check.
one guy. He might be the one guy that just gets blown out of the water. But I don't know if you're aware, and I say that because you most certainly are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few teams that are looking for centers this summer. There are a few teams that might be quite willing to go to a number that would be unfathomable with Sam Bennett, because there is not a lot of not a lot of competition out there for centermen, right?
Yeah.
So we also have to contend with, as the cap goes up, what was like $9 million, like crazy money. But in 2 years, it's not going to be.
No, that's right.
And so I think we have to look at some of the dollars that are going to get put out this year. You have to look at them in a different lens. But there's going to be people that get paid.
Right.
And like Ryan Donato just got $4 million yesterday.
Yeah.
And Ryan's career high was 16 goals. He got 30, I think, this year in Chicago, and he's making $4 million. Yeah. So is Ryan Donato the equal of Sam Bennett? Not even close.
No,
so what do you think he's going to get?
Yeah. Well, Bennett is 4.425.
Okay, so Drake's that becomes an even more difficult conversation.
Yeah.
I got a question. I talked to a guy today. He brought up something that I thought was really interesting about these guys. So, reading a lot, and you've reported that, maybe Marchand is in 4 years times 8 million,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
What if a team offers him 8 years at 4 million?
Exactly right.
And
exactly right.
So you're going to get a few years there. Maybe it's dead money, as he ages out.
Yeah.
But if the cap is 120 million, you can park 4 million.
Absolutely.
If he couldn't play at a certain point.
Yeah.
You
have to have an owner that's comfortable doing that. It's not going
Right.
to be across the board, but that is 100% the trend that we're literally watching unfold. We're watching.
wonder-
It'll be with Tavares, go down the list.
So now the CBA is being negotiated right now. I'm sure we're not the only people that have thought of this.
No.
I'm sure it's slightly concerning
Has to be.
for the owner's side, because
Has to
this
be.
is like this is like the no trade thing. As soon
Yeah.
as somebody started handing them out, that became the norm.
Yeah.
Now you got guys that get 8 goals a year. They got 15 teams and no trade protection. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Good for them. Hell, awesome. But the GMs feel, man, it's the only way I can compete. And
if Florida
do
wants
it.
to pay Brad Marchand $4-ish million at 43 years of age, and he's not playing and hasn't played for 2 years or more, that's their business, right? Until the NHL steps in and says, well, that isn't going to work.
Okay, so
it's a good point.
So Marchand is a different one than Bennett, because if we're talking about $8 million and they can carve the same number, 32 million.
Yeah.
If they can carve that or agree on that, and then withdraw the state tax out of it, you might get him at a cap hit of under 4 million if you go for 8 years. Bennett's number is going to be bigger. It's just going to be bigger. And by the way, I don't know how many right-handed D are sitting out on the market, but Aaron Ekblad is going to get some money. It feels like, to me, the Seth Jones trade was for today and tomorrow.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that might be the end of the road for Ekblad in Florida, because they have a right-handed guy that would play with Forsling, and then they would look to backfill on their second pair. That would be cheaper. That allows them to maybe spend some money elsewhere. Billy Zito has got a track record now of success, of winning, yes, but putting together the team that we spoke about earlier. And so while the players are beating their brains out here, they're back in the offices most of the day, sharpening their pencils, and they've got that whiteboard, and they erase a guy's name and they write a guy's name in, and then they go, no, that doesn't work, and they erase it out. And that's what's been going on for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month.
Yeah. And Julian Brisebois with Tampa Bay, similar, right? Those two guys are aggressive general managers who have been fortunate the way some of these deals have worked out.
Sure.
But the state of Florida has now been to the Stanley Cup Final 6 straight years and has won 4 of those championships. It's an incredible run.
It's interesting, Drake. You bring up Tampa. That's really interesting, because they, in my head anyway, they've been kind of the forerunner of the long contract. They did it with Chernak. They did it with Cirelli.
Yeah.
They did it with Hagel. They did it with Janot, and then they traded him. There's a lot of examples there of below the top end players that they've signed for a million years, and they're like, we'll take that cap hit later on.
Okay, as we wind down the Tim Hortons headlines and the podcast in general, we're talking contracts, which is a beautiful segue over to what Stan Bowman is facing now, right? Big decisions ahead. Without change or add, extensions for Connor McDavid and Evan Bouchard are looming. McDavid's contract rate is going to be whatever Connor McDavid wants it to be.
Right.
If he wants an
Yep.
8-year deal, X number of dollars, that's what he's getting. If he wants a 4-year deal to maybe manage his life a little bit differently, if things aren't going the way that he hoped and expected, well, maybe that's the way he goes. Some push back at that because the belief is that, Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are super close and they want to remain tied together. So that's almost an aside, McDavid's deal. Bouchard for me is far more interesting, only because you've already got Darnell Nurse at 9.5?
Yeah.
On a long term. And there's been speculation on Bouchard that he wants upwards of 11 million or just over $11 million. I mean, if you didn't have Darnell Nurse, with all due respect, Evan Bouchard is just that enormous question mark because of what he can what he can bring, but then also what he takes away. So talk about just the reality of that situation, and then the reality that they could have two defensemen taking up $20+ million of cap space.
Well, I'll start really quickly with McDavid. And so remember, the cap is going up this year, but it's also going up next year. And when you sign that extension, you sign it into the next year. So with McDavid, right, unlike almost anybody else in the game, I'm just looking at percentage of the cap. And as the cap goes up, he can't end up with 12% of the cap. So his management team has to look at, okay, if the cap is, what's the cap going up to this year, Drake? Sorry. Do you know kind of offhand?
Oh, what is it, 95?
So 95 and then 102 or something. So by the time that number goes into effect, it still has to reflect 18% of the cap or whatever the number is. That's the protection of the shorter part of the deal. That's what I would think with McDavid if they choose to go that way. Bouchard, as I talked about earlier, the difference between the top end and the low end of his game is cavernous. And it's really hard to figure out because you can go in that series, the one that we just watched, and you can find a half a dozen plays where he makes a pass that is perfect and pinpoint and on the tape. I know we talk about it, the Bouch bomb and his slap shot and all that. He's an excellent passer. Forwards love excellent passers because they don't have to dig the puck out of their feet. And Bouchard is an outstanding passer. His power play acumen, the way he plays 75% of the time is of a top end defenseman. It's the other 25% that you're going to have to chew or that he's going to mature out of. Mm-hmm. But I would say if we talk about, Draisaitl signed and obviously him and McDavid would have spoken. They're so close about what the future might be. And you would think that they'd had these discussions. Would you not think that they would be into Bouchard for this too?
For sure.
So this is a really multi-layered discussion, I would think, between players as well as, and management's over here, but everybody thinks of it differently, right? Every player, every individual thinks of this differently. I would have, even though I talked about percentage of the cap, I'd have a tough time getting into the $11 million range with him. Here's the thing. For the people that say they should trade him and let him go and sign some other guys, as soon as you trade him, you're going to spend the next decade looking for him.
Agreed.
And where are you finding somebody that can do all the things he does well? Like, where does that come from? As Kenny Holland always said, there is no hockey player store. You can't just go buy another one of those. You break your stick, you go buy another stick. You trade your D. You just don't go and get them. And so they're in a tough spot. I'll tell you what I wouldn't do if I was Edmonton. Is I would not sign Trent Frederick for $4 million for 8 years.
That's happening. I think it's 3.8.
I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, he's a career high 17 goals. I like Trent. I think he's a terrific kid when he's at his best, and he was not even close to his best when he got to Edmonton, right? He's a middle six forward at his best. You need every nickel and dime and penny here for the extensions coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can probably not go 8 years there.
Yeah.
I really do. And
Yeah.
when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's just longer and more than I would be prepared to pay. I don't see that as being a value-added contract.
All right. Well, final thought then, as we wrap up the podcast, goaltending. I mean, we talked about it a lot leading up to the deadline. Bowman didn't feel like he needed to upgrade, or there wasn't an upgrade available. And those two things are different, right?
Because I think you got B. Don't you think?
Yes.
But now it comes to the same discussion.
Yeah.
So who are you going to get?
Yeah.
Who is like, in a free agent world, who's better? Like, you could sign Jake Allen again, or you could try to. Jake Allen's going to have a couple of teams competing for him. He's a free agent. How much money can you put into that position? Because you need it so definitively in other places. Like, they're in a tough spot. Like, of course, John Gibson's name's out there for the 9th year in a row. Like, what do you think Anaheim's going to say? Oh, geez, you're a really good group of guys, and we'll take back money, and like, that's an expensive trade.
Yeah. It's
like, both in, I would think, in asset and in dollar. Like, they're in a tough spot there. But I don't think they might even be in the place of change for change is part of what they need to do. Maybe. But I don't think you can go back with the same goaltending. I think that it just, there would be an undercurrent all year with the same goaltending. And it's unfortunately, I mean, that's the nature of that bloody position, right?
Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Horton. So as we wrap up here, right? I know you enjoy this time of year personally because you're spending time with family, you're golfing, you're doing all those things, but professionally. So the Stanley Cup has been handed out. You don't have to focus much on the draft. I mean, you're probably having the odd conversation with Cammie, just that sort of stuff. Yeah,
that's fun.
Do you enjoy that part of the off season, the conversations that you're having with lots of hockey people about, oh, geez, I wonder what this team is doing? Or you get the call from a GM friend or a coach friend who says, what do you think of player X, or that sort of thing? You enjoy that?
Well, I do. Because I call you anytime that I kind of hear something, and I'm like, because I hear it on the periphery, right? I'm not in it every day like you are. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to do my Drager imitation here. I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And you go, nah. You say that a lot. Nah. Because everybody's putting trades together. They all think they're great trades.
Yeah.
And then they don't work for one reason or another, or 100 reasons.
Yeah.
Right? So I do like it. I do know that a lot of the stuff that gets talked about just does not happen.
No.
It just doesn't happen for many, many different reasons. I do think, though, between now and July 1st is going to be really busy. Busier than it has been in the past. And because there's not a lot of free agents. And so teams want to improve, well, they got to trade. And trades are always interesting for us.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping that a lot of it would get done by, say, the 3rd, 4th of July, because then I'm gone. I'm heading west. The word I got earlier this week that Marner may actually wait until the middle of July, which I get. I mean, all the interest pours in unless you're tampering on July 1st. Right. Then you whittle your list down, and then, Mitch and his wife and his family, likely want to visit 3, 4 of the primary locations of interest, and then you make the decision. Well, you know what? That's not great for the teams.
It's not great for the teams. It's not great for other players.
No, it's not.
But at the end of the day, it's not selfish. It's like it's you. So you get to decide.
Yeah. You get to decide.
You don't have to sign on the first or the second.
No.
Like you really don't. And so the Leafs, for example, if they were able to trade his rights, right? Why would they be interested in giving him an 8th year for a 3rd round draft pick?
Mm-hmm.
Like basically, but if you traded him to Team X and they signed him to 8 years, like why would you do that? What are you doing with that draft pick? Just so he can get an 8th year?
Mm-hmm.
Like forget it. And so it's really interesting how this is all playing out. And if you've got all the cards, you've got all the cards. And Marner and every free agent has the cards. But if you're at that level of player, you've got more cards.
Yes, you do. All right, buddy. What's your weekend looking like?
What is the weekend? What day is today? Thursday. Oh,
Thursday,
I'm going out to game 4 of the American Hockey League final out in Abbotsford. It's about 90 minutes from here, but with traffic, it's about 2 hours. So go out and watch the Canucks farm team. Cammy's obviously got to go. So that's then I get golf a couple of days. I'm busy. I'm really busy. I got high level busyness right now.
Now, do you sit with the media sloths who are covering this, or do you sit beside Cammy and like make fun of her notes and her?
No, I did. The first game I went to, I got a text from her because I was kind of in the back of the box, and I got a text from her basically telling me to zip it because apparently my voice carries. So I just moved over into like where there's a secondary management. Well, it's not management. It's like kind of a spillover box area. So that's where I've been banished to.
That's outstanding.
What did she put? I think she's put on the text, zip it. And I was like, what the fuck? Somebody's asking me a question. I'm not offering anything. So anyways, that's where I'll be over there today.
That's outstanding.
And the building itself is amazing. It is so loud and, it's built, it's about 6,000 fans, I guess. And it's just packed and it's fun. And Charlotte's the other opponent, Florida's farm team.
Yes,
they got a player, by the way, that's not too far away, Sortis, and he's a good player. So, anyways, game 4, and we'll go up to that and play some golf. And what do you got the weekend? You got to be getting into smoker season, eh?
Yeah, thinking about it for Sunday. This is that time of year. It's similar to the trade deadline where you feel like you're on the clock 24/7, right? You're just something might happen, that kind of thing. I've got a charity golf tournament tomorrow, which will be my
what's your game like?
Round.
Ooh,
Second round. I haven't played in 2 weeks, so I can't imagine. But it's a scramble, right? So who cares? You just flail away and let somebody.
Those are fun. They're fun.
Yeah.
Meet some good people, right?
Yeah. So do that, and then we're into that stage of I got the truck fully tuned up for the long drive out west. So we've got all of that kind of finishing prep happening right now. So now we're in good shape. Looking forward to it. All right, buddy.
It'll be awesome. Enjoy the weekend. Everybody, thanks for following along all year. It's been a long year. It's been a good year. And we'll be back next week as we get closer to free agency. Thanks for listening.
Yes. And thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Driggs and make this podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Thank you. And thank you to Akon. Until early next week, stay safe, everybody.